Stop scrolling, because what you're about to see doesn't look real. Take a close look at these three quarters. One is blue, one is green, and one is bright red. At first glance, they almost look fake. But are they? Or could these unusual-looking coins be hiding a much bigger story? Most people would spend these without thinking twice. But what if that was a huge mistake? What if one of these coins has survived decades while becoming something almost nobody else owns? And here's the biggest question. How did ordinary US quarters end up looking like this? Were they made this way? Were they altered later? Or do they have a history that most collectors never talk about? Stay with me, because we're going to inspect every single coin up close. First, we'll look at all three together. Then we'll flip them over. And after that, we'll examine each coin one by one. We'll check every detail, every date, every mark, every unusual color, every clue. And trust me, the closer we look, the more interesting these coins become. This blue quarter, where did that color come from? This green one, why does it look completely different from an ordinary quarter? And this red quarter, could decades of history be hiding behind that unusual appearance? Most people only see 25 cents. Collectors see questions. Questions lead to discoveries. And discoveries can completely change the way you look at pocket change forever. So don't skip ahead. Don't miss a single coin. Because every one of these quarters has its own story, its own mystery, and its own journey through history. Let's start by taking a closer look at all three together. Stop. Don't skip this video. Because what you're looking at is not an ordinary Washington quarter. At least, that's what it wants you to believe. Look carefully. This coin isn't silver like most quarters. It isn't dull. It isn't ordinary. Instead, it has an unusual deep blue appearance. And that raises one question. What happened to this coin? Was it created this way? Did something happen during its journey? Or is there a hidden story that nobody has ever told? Stay with me, because before we inspect every tiny detail, I want you to imagine something. Imagine this coin could talk. What would it tell us? Would it tell us about the thousands of hands that carried it? Would it tell us about the places it visited? Or would it reveal a mystery hidden for decades? That's exactly what we're about to explore. Story begins. The date on this quarter says 1986. Think about that for a second. More than 3 decades have passed since this coin was struck. The world was completely different. There were no smartphones, no social media, no online shopping. People paid with cash every single day. And somewhere inside the United States Mint, this quarter was born. Fresh, brilliant, perfect. Every detail was razor sharp. George Washington's portrait looked flawless. The eagle on the reverse stood proudly. Nobody at the mint could possibly imagine that decades later, this exact coin would look completely different. Now here's the first mystery. Coins don't simply become blue overnight. Time leaves marks. Environment leaves marks. Storage leaves marks. Circulation leaves marks. Every year changes a coin a little more. And every tiny change becomes part of its history. Imagine this quarter leaving the mint for the very first time. A bank receives sealed rolls. A cashier opens one. This quarter enters circulation. Someone buys groceries. Another person pays for fuel. Another drops it into a vending machine. Another keeps it in a pocket for weeks. Every transaction creates another invisible chapter. Nobody notices. Nobody remembers. Yet the story keeps growing. Now ask yourself this. How many people do you think have held this coin? 100? 500? 1,000? Maybe far more. Every owner had a different life, different dreams, different struggles, different destinations. Yet for a brief moment, they all had one thing in common. This quarter. Now let's look closer. The blue appearance immediately catches the eye. That's why, even before checking the date, most people stop and stare. Curiosity is powerful. It forces us to ask questions. And questions are exactly what make coin collecting so exciting. Not every mystery has an answer. Sometimes, the mystery itself becomes the treasure. Imagine this quarter sitting forgotten inside an old drawer. Years pass. Dust settles. Families move. Homes change. Furniture gets replaced. Yet the coin quietly waits. Then one day, someone opens that drawer. Their eyes fall on the unusual blue color. Immediately they stop. This doesn't look normal. And just like that, a forgotten coin becomes interesting again. Now think about everything this quarter may have witnessed. Economic changes, technological revolutions, entire generations growing up, children becoming parents, parents becoming grandparents. Yet this little quarter continues its journey. Silent, patient, still surviving. That's what makes old coins fascinating. They're more than money. They're tiny travelers through time. Now let me ask you another question. If you found this exact coin in your pocket today, would you spend it or would you keep it? Most people would probably spend it without thinking. Collectors would stop, look closer, check the date, study every detail, because they understand something most people don't. Sometimes the most ordinary looking coins hide the most interesting stories. Now let's examine George Washington's portrait. Despite the years, his profile is still recognizable. The lettering still tells its story. The date still connects us to another era. One simple number, yet it instantly transports us back decades. That's the magic of coins. They connect today's hands with yesterday's history. Imagine this quarter traveling across different states, passing through restaurants, gas stations, small-town shops, busy city stores, banks, coin jars, cash registers, pocket after pocket, owner after owner, year after year. Every mile adds another mystery. Every scratch adds another memory. Every mark becomes evidence that this coin truly lived a long life. And here's something most people never think about. Coins often outlive the people who first spent them. That's incredible. The first owner of this quarter may never have imagined it would still exist today. Yet here it is, still telling a silent story, still making people curious, still inviting questions. And we've only just begun, because in the next part, we're going to inspect this coin even more closely. We'll explore why unusual-looking quarters capture collectors' attention. We'll examine every visible clue. And we'll uncover why one small coin can create such a big mystery. Trust me, the deeper we look, the more fascinating this story becomes. So far, we've looked at what makes this quarter so unusual. We've talked about its mysterious blue appearance. We've imagined the incredible journey it may have taken. But now, the real investigation begins. Because this is the moment when collectors stop looking at a coin and start looking for clues. Take another close look at this 1986 Washington quarter. Forget its face value for a moment. Forget that it's worth only 25 cents in everyday circulation. Instead, look at it like a detective examining evidence. Every tiny detail matters. Every mark has a reason. Every color tells a story. And sometimes, the smallest clue becomes the biggest mystery. Now imagine you're the very first person to discover this coin inside an old coin jar. You dump hundreds of coins onto a table. Pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters. Everything looks ordinary. Until suddenly, one coin catches your eye. Not because it's shiny, not because it's new, but because it's blue. Immediately your brain asks a question. Why does this one look different? And that's exactly how discoveries begin. Not with answers, but with questions. Now think about the journey this coin may have taken after leaving the mint. Perhaps it spent years moving through busy cash registers. Perhaps it crossed state lines inside someone's wallet during long road trips. Perhaps it was carried by a student, a soldier, a truck driver, a tourist, or maybe a collector who unknowingly placed it in storage for years. Nobody knows. And that's the beauty of old coins. Their greatest stories are often the ones we'll never fully uncover. Now let's examine George Washington's portrait. Despite the passing decades, his face still stands proudly on the front of the coin. Every line reminds us of American history. Every letter connects this small piece of metal to millions of other quarters produced over the years. Yet this one feels different. Why? Because the unusual blue appearance changes the way our eyes see it. It transforms something familiar into something mysterious. Now flip the coin over. The eagle spreads its wings. Strong, proud, timeless. How many people do you think looked at this eagle over the last several decades? Hundreds, thousands. Every owner saw the same design, but not everyone noticed the details. Collectors do. Collectors slow down. Collectors pay attention. because they know that every coin deserves a second look. Now imagine this quarter falling between the cushions of an old sofa sometime during the 1990s. Months pass, then years. The family moves away. The sofa is forgotten. The coin stays exactly where it landed, hidden, silent, waiting. Then one day, someone cleaning the furniture discovers it. The first thing they notice isn't the date. It's the unusual color. Suddenly, a forgotten quarter becomes the center of attention. That's how quickly curiosity can change everything. Now here's something interesting. Millions of Washington quarters were made. Most of them look exactly the same. But every once in a while, one develops an appearance that makes people stop and stare. Sometimes it's colorful toning. Sometimes it's unusual wear. Sometimes it's simply a life story written across the surface. And that's what makes collecting exciting. Every coin is different, even when they started exactly the same. Now think about time. Time changes people. Time changes cities. Time changes buildings. And time changes coins. No coin can travel for decades without collecting memories along the way. Those memories aren't written with ink. They're written with tiny marks, soft edges, natural wear, and in this case, an eye-catching blue appearance. Now let me ask you something. If you had never seen this coin before, would you believe it had already traveled through nearly 4 decades of history? Would you imagine how many hands had carried it? Would you imagine how many stories it quietly witnessed? Probably not, because coins never tell their own stories. They leave us to imagine them, and imagination is one of the greatest parts of collecting. Now picture this quarter inside a child's piggy bank. Every week another coin drops in. Months become years. The child grows older. Eventually the piggy bank is opened. The money is spent. The quarter begins traveling again. Its journey continues. Its mystery grows. Its story becomes even longer. And nobody realizes they're holding a tiny piece of living history. Now here's another thought. What if this quarter crossed the entire United States? What if it traveled from one coast to the other? What if it passed through dozens of cities before finally ending up in someone's collection? We'll never know. But that's exactly why the mystery remains alive. Because unanswered questions keep people searching. They keep people watching. They keep collectors fascinated. Now look once more at the blue color. Some viewers may think it's ordinary. Others may think it's unusual. But almost everyone asks the same question. What caused it? And that single question is powerful enough to keep curiosity alive. That's why this coin deserves attention. Not because we know every answer, but because we don't. The unknown is what makes this journey unforgettable. Imagine another 30 years passing. The year is far in the future. Technology has changed again. The world looks completely different. Yet this very same quarter could still exist. Still carrying the date 1986. Still carrying Washington's portrait. Still carrying the same mysterious blue appearance. Still making people ask questions. That's incredible when you really think about it. A small coin, outliving generations, continuing its journey long after today's owners are gone. That's why old coins matter. Not because they're simply money, but because they're survivors. And survivors always have stories worth telling. But believe me, we've only uncovered part of this coin's mystery. Because in the final chapter, we're going to bring everything together. We'll explore why collectors are drawn to coins like this, why unusual appearance can spark endless curiosity, and why a single Washington quarter can become far more memorable than its face value ever suggests. The biggest revelation is still waiting.
Stop scrolling right now, because what you're looking at is not a normal quarter. Look at this coin carefully. At first glance, it looks like a regular Washington quarter. Same size, same design, same United States coin. But then something feels different. The color. This green tone on a 1995 Washington quarter is not something you see every day. And that immediately raises one powerful question. What happened to this coin? Was it damaged? Was it exposed to something? Or is there a hidden story behind this unusual appearance? Stay with me, because this is not just a coin. This is a mystery hiding in plain sight. Let's go back to 1995, a time when the world was completely different. No smartphones, no social media, no digital wallets. Cash was king. And somewhere inside the United States Mint, this quarter was born. Fresh, shiny, perfect. A standard Washington quarter with George Washington's portrait on the front and eagle design on the back. Nothing unusual, nothing strange, just another coin among millions. But here's the twist. No one can predict a coin's future, not even the mint, because once a coin enters circulation, its journey becomes completely unpredictable. Imagine this coin leaving the mint in bulk rolls. Hundreds of identical quarters, heading straight into banks, then into cash registers, then into people's pockets. And from that moment, its real story begins. A customer receives it as change. They don't notice anything special. They just spend it. Then another person gets it. Then another. Then another. Day by day, year by year, this coin keeps moving. Always changing hands. Always traveling. Always surviving. But somewhere along the way, something started changing. The surface didn't look normal anymore. A green tone started appearing. Slowly. Naturally. Or maybe unexpectedly. And this is where things get interesting. Because coins don't just turn green without reason. Something must have influenced it. Time, environment, storage, chemical exposure, or just decades of circulation. Nobody knows for sure. And that uncertainty is what makes this coin fascinating. Now imagine finding this coin in pocket change today. You dump your coins on a table. Pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and suddenly, this one stands out. Not because it's rare, but because it looks different. The green tone immediately catches your eye, and your brain instantly asks, is this normal? Is this rare? Is this valuable? And just like that, a simple quarter becomes a mystery. Think about how many places this coin may have traveled. Gas stations, supermarkets, road trips, restaurants, banks, cash drawers, coin jars, even forgotten corners of the house. Every place adds a new layer to its story. Every hand adds a new chapter. And every year adds more mystery. Because coins don't stop moving. They only change direction. Most 1995 quarters look identical. Same silver tone, same shine, same design. But this one feels different. Why? Because our eyes are not used to seeing it like this. The green appearance breaks expectation. And whenever expectation breaks, curiosity increases. And when curiosity increases, people stop watching. Now here's the real question. Is this green tone natural aging? Or is it environmental change over time? Or something else entirely? The truth is, we may never know the full answer. And that's exactly what makes it powerful. Because mystery keeps stories alive. We will go deeper into this coin's transformation. We will explore how ordinary circulation can completely change the look of a coin. And we will uncover why collectors pay so much attention to coins that look different from the rest. Trust me, what happens next will change the way you look at pocket change forever. Stop scrolling right now because what you're looking at is not just another Washington quarter. At first glance, it looks completely normal. Same size, same design, same American coin that you've probably seen thousands of times before. But the moment you notice the color, everything changes. This is not how a normal 1995 Washington quarter is supposed to look. That unusual green tone immediately creates one big question in your mind. What happened to this coin? How did it change like this? Is it damage? Is it natural aging? Or is there a hidden story behind it that most people never notice? To understand this coin, we have to go back to the year 1995, a time when the world was completely different. No smartphones, no social media, no digital wallets. Cash was everywhere and coins like this were part of daily life. Somewhere inside the United States Mint, this quarter was created, fresh, shiny, and perfect in every way. At that moment, it looked exactly like every other quarter being produced in massive numbers. Millions of coins were struck that year, all of them identical at the start of their journey. But no one can predict what will happen once a coin enters circulation, because the moment it leaves a mint, its life becomes completely unpredictable. This quarter started its journey like every other coin, It was released into circulation through banks and cash registers. From there, it moved into everyday life. Someone received it as change at a store. Someone else used it to pay for a small purchase. Another person dropped it into a cash drawer without even thinking about it. And just like that, its journey continued from one hand to another. Years passed, and this coin kept moving through pockets, wallets, counters, machines, and coin jars, always changing hands, always traveling, always surviving. But somewhere during this long journey, something started to change about it. The surface did not stay the same. A strange green tone began to appear. Not suddenly, but slowly over time, almost like the coin was quietly transforming while nobody was paying attention. And this is where the mystery begins. Because coins don't normally change color like this without a reason. Something must have influenced it. Maybe environmental exposure, maybe long-term storage conditions, maybe chemical reaction over time, or maybe just decades of circulation wearing it down in a unique way. But the truth is, there is no clear answer that explains it completely. And that uncertainty is exactly what makes this coin interesting. Now imagine finding this quarter in a handful of normal coins. You're not looking for anything special. You just dump your change on a table. Pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters spread out in front of you. Everything looks normal until your eyes stop on this one coin. It doesn't match the rest. The green tone immediately stands out. And in that moment, your brain starts asking questions. Is this rare? Is this damaged? Is this worth something? Or is it just a normal coin that looks unusual because of time? That single moment of curiosity is what makes coins like this powerful in storytelling. Because most people would have spent this coin without even noticing anything different. It would have passed through thousands of hands without anyone paying attention. But at some point, someone saved it, noticed it, and brought it into focus. Now think about its journey again. Gas stations, grocery stores, road trips, restaurants, vending machines, bank counters, and coin jars at home. Every place it visited added another invisible layer to its history. Every transaction pushed it further into the unknown. And here is the most fascinating part. This coin has probably seen more real-life moments than we can ever imagine. It has been part of ordinary days, small purchases, quick exchanges, and silent transactions that nobody remembers. Yet all of those moments together make up its story. The green appearance might look simple at first, but it actually changes the entire personality of the coin. It makes people stop. It makes people question. And it makes people curious enough to look closer. That is why collectors pay attention to coins like this. Not because they always know the answer, but because they don't. The mystery is what makes it valuable in a different way. Not just in money, but in interest, in curiosity, and in attention. Now imagine this coin sitting in a drawer for years, completely forgotten. Time passes, dust gathers, and it becomes just another coin in a random collection. Until one day someone opens that drawer and notices the unusual color again. At that moment, the coin comes back to life. Its story starts again. And that is the real nature of coins like this. They don't have one ending. They have many small beginnings every time someone discovers them again. So the real question is not just what happened to this coin, but also where it will go next. Will it be kept as a collectible? Will it be studied? Or will it once again return to circulation and continue its unknown journey? The truth is, we may never fully know everything about it. And maybe that is the most interesting part. Because sometimes the most ordinary looking coins carry the most extraordinary mysteries, and all it takes is one moment of attention to turn something simple into something unforgettable. Now let's move to the third coin. And this one is even more interesting than the previous two, because at first glance, it looks like a normal 1972 Washington quarter. Same design, same portrait of George Washington, same United States quarter structure. But the moment you notice the red tone on this coin, everything changes again. Because this is not how a normal 1972 quarter is supposed to look. And that immediately creates a question in your mind. What caused this red appearance? Is it natural aging? Is it environmental exposure? Or is there something unusual about this coin's long journey? To understand this coin, we need to go back to 1972. a time when coins like this were being produced in massive quantities by the United States Mint. Every coin looked identical when it was first made, bright, clean, and standard in appearance. No red tones, no unusual colors, just a normal Washington quarter entering circulation. But the real story always begins after production, because once a coin leaves a mint, it enters the real world. And in the real world, anything can happen. This 1972 quarter entered circulation like millions of others. It was used in everyday transactions, passed from one person to another, spent at stores, received as change, carried in pockets, dropped into drawers, and forgotten inside coin jars. Years passed, then decades, and during all this time, the coin was slowly changing. Not suddenly, not in one moment, but gradually, through long exposure to time and environment. And that is where the mystery begins. Because the red tone you see today did not exist at the start of its life. It developed over time, layer by layer, moment by moment, as the coin traveled through different environments and conditions. And now, decades later, it stands in front of us with a completely different appearance. Most people would never notice this kind of change. Most people would simply spend it without a second thought. But when you slow down and actually look at it, it feels different. It feels like a coin that has been through something, like it carries a silent history that it cannot explain. Now imagine this coin moving through the 1970s. Cash was the main form of payment. Coins were used everywhere. Every small purchase involved change. Every transaction involved physical money. This quarter could have passed through thousands of hands during that time alone, each person adding a small chapter to its journey, without even realizing it. Then came the 1980s. The world started changing. New technology, new lifestyle, new economy. But this coin kept moving, still being used, still being spent, still surviving. Then the 1990s arrived, and this coin was already years deep into circulation. By now, it had probably been through countless cash registers, bank counters, and personal collections. Maybe it even sat forgotten for years before being discovered again. And that is one of the most interesting parts about coins like this. They don't follow a straight path. They disappear. They reappear. They get ignored. Then suddenly they get noticed again. Now look closely at the red tone. It is not uniform. It is not factory made. It feels like something that developed naturally over time. And that is exactly why it stands out. Because when something looks different from the standard version, our attention immediately shifts to it. We start asking questions. We start searching for answers. We start looking deeper. And that is what makes this coin powerful in storytelling. Not because it is confirmed rare, but because it is visually different enough to trigger curiosity. Now imagine someone finding this coin inside a random collection. They didn't expect anything special. They were just sorting through ordinary coins. Then suddenly this 1972 quarter appears with a red tone. Immediately they stop. They pick it up. They turn it under the light. They try to understand what they're seeing. And in that moment, the coin becomes more than just 25 cents. It becomes a mystery. Now think about how many coins like this exist unnoticed. How many are still sitting in jars? How many are hidden in old boxes? How many are still moving through circulation without anyone paying attention? Probably more than we realize. Because coins don't announce their uniqueness. They only reveal it when someone takes a closer look. And that is the real lesson behind this coin. Sometimes value is not obvious at first glance. Sometimes history hides inside ordinary objects. And sometimes all it takes is one small detail to change the way we see something forever. Now, as we look at this 1972 red-toned Washington quarter, we are not just seeing a coin. We are seeing decades of travel, decades of movement, decades of silent history. And even though we may never know its full journey, the mystery itself is what makes it memorable. Because in the end, coins like this are not just about money. They are about curiosity. They are about discovery. And they are about the hidden stories that exist inside everyday objects that most people never stop to notice. Now let's continue the story, because this 1972 Washington quarter is not finished yet. We've already seen how unusual its red tone looks, and we've already explored how it may have traveled through decades of circulation. But now the real question is deeper. What makes a coin slowly change its appearance over time? And more importantly, why do some coins look completely normal, while others start developing these strange and unusual colors? The answer is not simple, because coins live in the real world, and the real world is not controlled. It is unpredictable. Temperature changes, humidity, air exposure, storage conditions, and decades of handling. All of these factors quietly shape the surface of a coin without anyone noticing. And over time, those small changes begin to add up, slowly, step by step, until the coin starts to look different from the way it was originally made. Now imagine this 1972 quarter continuing its journey after leaving its early years of circulation. At some point, it may have been forgotten, placed inside a drawer, or stored inside a jar with hundreds of other coins, sitting there for years without movement, no attention, no use, just silence. And in that silence, change continues happening. Because even when a coin is not being used, time is still working on it. That is the part most people never think about. Coins don't need to be in circulation to change. They only need time. Now, picture someone rediscovering this coin years later. They open an old container. They pour out a mix of coins onto a table. And among all the ordinary silver-colored quarters, one coin stands out. Not because it is shiny, not because it is new, but because it looks different. That red tone immediately grabs attention again. And just like before, curiosity takes over. Why does this one look like this? Is it special? Is it damaged? Or is it just a natural result of time? These are the questions that make coin collecting so addictive, because every answer leads to another question. Now think about how many people may have ignored this coin throughout its life. People who received it in change. People who spent it without thinking. People who never even looked at the date. Just another number in a long list of coins. But time has a strange way of changing perspective. What was once ordinary can later become interesting. What was once ignored can later become valuable in curiosity. Now focus again on the surface of this coin. That red tone is not just color. It is a sign of transformation, a visual record of time passing, a silent marker of its journey. And while we may not be able to trace every single step of its history, we can still see the result of that journey today. And that is what makes it fascinating. Because sometimes the story of a coin is not written in documents. It is written on its surface. Now imagine this quarter sitting in circulation during the 1980s and 1990s, a time when digital technology was slowly starting to change the world. But physical money was still everywhere. This coin could have passed through countless transactions during those decades. Gas stations, stores, restaurants, small purchases, big cities, small towns, everywhere. And with every transaction, its journey continued. Silent, unnoticed, but constant. Now here is something interesting to think about. Most people don't realize that coins are not just objects. They are travelers. They move from place to place, from hand to hand, from one moment in time to another. And in doing so, they collect history in their own unique way. Not in writing, not in records, but in wear, in texture, in appearance, and in this case, in color. Now the red tone becomes even more important because it separates this coin from millions of others. It gives it identity, it gives it character, and most importantly, it gives it attention. Now imagine showing this coin to someone who has never seen it before. The first reaction is always the same: confusion, curiosity, and then questions, because it doesn't match expectation. And whenever expectation breaks, interest increases. Now, as we move toward the final part of this coin story, we are left with one final thought. Maybe this coin is not rare in the traditional sense. Maybe it is not worth a fortune, but it is still valuable in another way, because it makes people stop. It makes people look closer, and it makes people think. And sometimes that is more powerful than anything else, because a coin that creates curiosity is a coin that never truly loses its value in storytelling.